going on, guys? Welcome back to G&B Fishing, and today on Tackle Tuesday we got a great video for y'all. So this is the top 10 best products that I've tested in 2020, and these are all fishing products, and let's get right into it. So we're going to start first with the honorable mentions, just go through these real quick, and for number one, we'll go from 5 to 1 for the honorable mentions. And for this first one right here, we have the Bass Pro Shops Tournament Series Super Shad. Now this thing, great little bait, real subtle action. It's awesome as a chatterbait trailer. I have some of those rigged up, and my favorite way to fish it though is on a chatterbait, but on those tough summer days, or spring or fall, whatever it may be, when you're sight fishing and you put this thing on a belly weighted swim bait hook. Now this thing on that belly weighted swim bait hook, real subtle action, and I would just dip the tail in a little bit of garlic Do It lure dye, and perfect. So definitely check this guy out. But the reason it's on honorable mentions and not in the top 10, so on a chatterbait, you know, you're fishing it. Let me just grab one. All right, this will be coming up in the top 10. This is just Picasso shock blade, but so with that kind of longer trailer, that it's not flat, it's a little bit more vertical. So when you're fishing this Super Shad on the back of a chatterbait, this is a swim bait, but just imagine this on there. I don't really want to change them out and waste this bait, so this is just what I'm running with. So when you're coming over cover, this bait, because it's not flat like something, you know, like a Z-Craw, if you had a Z-Craw as a trailer, if you're coming over cover, it's just going to go right across it, right? But with this bladed jig, basically, when it comes over, that trailer forces it to turn, right? It forces that jig to hit, to hit the structure. So it'll hit it, and it'll turn. And when it turns, your hook point goes right into it. So that causes you to get hung up. Whereas if you use a flat bait, like, you know, a Z-Craw or a crawl, super speed crawl, like this right here, something like that, then it won't do that. But if you use this thing, then it rolls, hook point gets buried in that cover, and then, you know, you lose $15 for a chatterbait. And now talking about this, you know, on this weedless swim bait hook. So the reason why it's not in the top 10, I love this bait, but when you're fishing the swim bait and a fish bites it, I mean, this thing has just about no bite. So that's one of the problems with it. But when you're fighting them and that bait goes down there, you have that. But then again, you know, you don't have a lot of bite, so you got to be pretty careful with it. But it's still a great bait. Love to fish it. And let's go right into the next one. So next is the Rapala Ripstop. This is a great little jerk bait. Just super finesse, really good in cold water. I love fishing this thing in a little bit of current. It's really light, so that current really takes it, and yeah, definitely one of my favorite jerk baits. That ripstop really helps compared to a shadow wrap. So yeah, definitely that little stopper back there really gets it to really stop when you finish jerking it. And yeah, this is definitely a good bait. But doesn't have a ton of great colors, and the hooks that came on it were horrible. I caught probably 5 fish and they've been out, so it's not why it's in the top 10. I changed this back one out, but I haven't changed this front one out yet, which I will before I go out next. But that's the Ripstop. Now, for the number 4 honorable mention is this Bass Pro Shops XPS swim bait. So this thing's awesome, comes in at a great price, really cheap, considering people are paying, you know, $400 for a Roman-made big old swim bait. This guy right here is awesome. Cheap little swim bait, works great. Really fun to watch bass eat this. Just twitching it, you let it sit, and it'll kick out, and oh, it's so much fun. Definitely, I've put a 4-pounder on this summer, just flipping it, sight fishing into some cover, around some rocks, lay down. But this thing's awesome. Definitely love this bait. And that's number 4, the Bass Pro Shop swim bait. Now, number 2 is the Lucky Craft Square Bill. This thing right here is awesome. This is a 2.5 size, which more of your 1.5 size would probably be like this little brat right here. So you can see how much of a bigger profile it is. Really great bluegill imitation. Love to throw this thing, caught some big fish on it. And I got the bigger size because I really wanted to weed out some of those smaller bites, but you still get small bites on this thing. Catches just about everything, and it's a great square bill. Last but not least, a little bit more of a recent crankbait is the Rapala BX Brat. This thing, I have loved this thing, put a ton of fish on it. It's a little balsa square bill, and my favorite way to fish it is probably worming it through wood with that balsa. Really, it floats real easy. So, you hit that structure and you just get it to float up and you worm it through, and fishes great through wood, comes in some good colors. I just have this little crawl color, but it's got a chartreuse tail, tip, whatever you want to call it, on the end, so it can imitate a bluegill too. So definitely a great crankbait, and I put a ton of fish on this guy. Now we're getting into the top 10 here. So here were our honorable mentions. So let's get into the top 10. We're going to start off with this Bass Pro Shops Excel Spool of Monofilament. 1,500 yards for $10.99. That's right, $10.99. Great setup of line, ton of line. I have it spooled up on my topwater rod, that Lew's Mach 2, which we got a video coming out soon of that. But this thing is awesome. I have loved this, and it's been working really good for me. I actually went through a spool, lasted me spring, summer, and I just had to pick up a new one this winter. So it lasted me a little bit through fall, but I wasn't really throwing top water in fall. This is some awesome line. Really love this stuff. Super cheap. Definitely pick this up. And next, we have the Ned Rig. So, as you can see here, this is the Ned Rig. All it is, it's a little stand-up jig head. So your jig head on the bottom sits just like that, and your plastic is standing up in the water. I've really liked these. When the fishing gets really tough, they just slam. They really do. I just ran out of my Z-Man Ned Rigs, which lasted me forever. So right now we're just running with half of that little 6-inch Clout Senko. And this thing's awesome right here, guys. This so good when it's cold, when you got a really finesse fish, just dragging this thing on the bottom. Great bait. Now, number 8, we have the Jika Rig. All the Jika Rig is it's a Tokyo rig with a short little stem. So I'll show you the Tokyo rig, which is up next. So we'll just do them both. And so see how long this stem is. You can fit 2 weights. The Jika rig, you mainly do 1 because you're not really shooting for that clacking sound. I went with a lighter weight on this because I wanted a slower, more natural fall. And this thing's been awesome. So with a Texas rig, right, where your weight's here and then your line's going out, when you're flipping into cover, so if you flip in, your bait's falling through and that line is dragging it, right, and it's swinging down. So with this, when you flip it in there, your line is on this swivel. So everything is going straight down. And now we had a big algae spawn this summer, and in those little holes of that algae where it all pull up, there was shade in there, so the bass would like to hang out in there. And so you'd flip it in those little holes that would go straight down, and I crushed them on this. Definitely one of my favorite techniques this summer. So much fun. And yeah, Jika rig's great. So let's just jump straight into the Tokyo rig. This is pretty new rig. I've definitely had some time to test it out this season, and it's great. The sound of these 2 weights clacking together, I think, really helps, and the ability for that bait to sit off the bottom like that. So if you have, that silt bottom or that algae when you don't want to throw a heavy weight or 2 of them, So you can go with this, and your bait's going to sit like that. And so if this is your, your junk and silt and algae on the bottom, it's going to be like this right through it. So your bait and your presentation isn't picking up all that junk on the bottom. So the Tokyo rig, definitely one of the best heavy cover rigs that I found so far. Really love this guy. Next, we have the Picasso Shock Blade Chatterbait. This thing, pretty interesting. It's got holes in the little chatterbait blade. Most chatterbaits do not. It gives off a ton of vibration, and it kicks so hard it's actually scratched the head from it, hitting so much, and kicks a lot. Love this thing. Great little bluegill imitation, fishing it on top of grass lines next to weed lines. And in cover, this thing does great, but I switched to a flat trailer so it doesn't roll and your hook gets in the cover. But this thing, awesome. Love this bait. Next up, we have the 13 Fishing Churro. This is a great swim bait, and it has the hex keel on it. So all that is if you take it out, there are ridges. There are ridges on it, and that just helps keep it stable. So actually burning this thing up shallow and through grass, definitely a great strategy this summer. Love this bait. Comes in some great colors, and you can use it as a trailer on a jig head on that weedless swim bait hook. And yeah, these are great. So definitely check these out. All right. Next, we have the 6 Sense Quake 70 lipless crankbait. This thing, super tinny rattle to it, real loud. Love fishing it when that water gets a little bit cold, or not too cold, because I think when the water's too cold, it's just a little too loud. So when the water's, decently warm, 50s, I like to fish this thing, yo-yo it, rip it through grass, straight retrieve it. Just depends on how they're eating it. But this thing, great crankbait, and 6 Sense, great colors. All their stuff is just really good. So yeah, this is an awesome little crankbait right here. And another product from 6 Sense. We have the 75X flat-sided crankbait. It's got a 1-knocker, and this thing in cold water is amazing. This is my favorite crankbait this whole season. It catches fish. If I'm throwing something like this or this brat, and I want to slow down, instead of going, to a finesse presentation like this or the Ned rig, instead I'm going to throw this 75 flat like this lipless right here. It's got a super tight wobble. As you can see, those flat sides make the wobble really tight, so it's awesome in cold water, bouncing off rocks with that square bill. Looks great. Yeah, this best crankbait of the season for sure. And next we have, if you can't hear that, it's the SLX DC. This reel is Shimano's most affordable reel to feature the DC technology, and all that is it is a digital chip, and this digital chip analyzes your spool and allows you to make farther casts. This thing really worked great for me. I started not liking it at first, but then I think I maybe had the spool tension a little wrong, but now really grown on me. For skipping, you don't have to touch the spool. You can cast heavy lures insanely far, and it's just worked really well for me this season. So with these Cyber Monday deals coming up, definitely go and try and check one out, so that way you can save a little bit of money, because while they're Shimano's cheapest DC model, they're still really expensive. But definitely check this one out. And drum roll for number 1, we have the Plano Edge box. This box right here shines above all of them. It's got that one-handed latch, and it's great. So I got this thing when you have just normal utility boxes. Here's my little square bill box, like this Cabela's one right here. So if you look inside, Now, I use one of these as my terminal box, and the hooks would always get under these, in between the dividers and the top, and they would slide around. So never stay organized, and all my hot sizes were mixing up. So I got one of these, and nothing moves around. Everything is locked down, and also it has that restrictor built into it. It's got those little pellets in it that stop your plastics from rusting, and this thing has been amazing. This is definitely my favorite product of 2020. It's awesome, and if you have multiple of them, you can see it has these ridges on the bottom, and it has this little line on the top. So if you stack them on top of each other, they won't slide around. They're going to be pretty sturdy, and these things are great. So I'm probably going to switch my jig box like this right here. It's just another one of those Cabela's boxes I'm using. And as you can see, I just took a couple chatterbaits out for this video, and tabs are falling out and everything's sliding everywhere. So definitely going to switch my jig box, the bladed jig box, to one of these coming up. And I'll definitely give you guys a review on that, because I've heard people's opinions are kind of mixed on it, but I need a better system for my jigs, so we're going to check it out. But yeah, this thing definitely number one. Nothing moves. Super nice. Yeah, number one for sure. That wraps it up today. What videos y'all want to see next? Drop a comment in the description. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on G&B Fishing.